Welcome to Casa Del Buono. I'm Barbara Del Buono.
And I'm John Del Buono.
John has been a practicing attorney for 64 years, and I have had the privilege of writing several books about the special loves in my life. One of those special loves is my country. As a result, we wrote a book called The Cheated Generations. We did this because we feel that several generations from the time we were born have been cheated out of a lifestyle that we knew when we were growing up. We knew a country that was unified, where everyone was patriotic to the extreme. It was during World War II, when we fought for our freedom, both overseas and at home, that freedom was very precious to us, because if we lost it, we would have been enslaved by a man like Hitler. It did something to our view of America, and it's been lost. As a result, we are very discouraged about the legacy that we're going to leave to our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. They do not deserve to be in a country where we are $17 trillion in debt, and let these children start trying to work and pay that back through their taxes. We want something different. And we thought long and hard about writing a book to try to make a change. It's not enough to state the problem. A solution is necessary. And in doing this book, we have come up with a solution to the problem, which we call the Universal Political Party. And my husband has been very instrumental in trying to get this to become a reality.
The background for the Universal Political Party is this. In 1965, I was interested in running for mayor of my hometown of Waterbury. I didn't know anything about politics except what I'd learned as a lawyer and observing it until I hit it. When I got into it, I realized I was into what is now I realize is the spoils system. That comes from the victor belongs to spoils. That's the expression. And that's what they were doing. I realized that I was supposed to go out and solicit money, which was against my nature. I'd always been independent. I realized I was going to have to be making deals with people who wanted things from me in exchange for backing me up to run for office. I wasn't used to that. I was used to my integrity. I return a favor for a favor, but it was not going to be an obligation that I was going to feel required to fulfill. So Barbara and I talked about it. What should we do? There was no alternative to the spoils system because both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they both used it. And it's been in use for 238 years since the founding of the nation. President Washington did not like it, but he didn't have any alternative either. So we decided to walk away from politics, which meant walking away from my desire to be in public office and be of public service, a patriotic duty, an obligation and privilege. So we walked away because we had no place to go. There was no alternative that was available. And that remained until about 10 years ago, in 2004, when we started to formulate the idea of writing this book, The Cheated Generations. And where that came about is we had lived through the Depression. We had lived through World War II. We knew what the nation was like when it was united, when, frankly, people were starving and was desperate. And then during the war, World War World War II, when our freedom was at stake, if we lost that war, we would have been under Hitler and the Nazis, or under the Japanese emperor. But we wouldn't have had our freedom. And the whole nation united, 100%. Unlike anything you see nowadays in the last 50 years. So unless you lived during that period, you don't understand what the generation was like at that time and what the generation has been like since the sexual revolution of the 1960s to the present time. It's a half a century. It's gotten worse last several years, and frankly it's at its lowest point right now with this administration that we have and
So low, in fact, that we are in danger of losing the America that we've known. It can go down.
Our grandchildren and our children do not know what it was like. None of them know what it was like, what the nation was like, what the nation should be like. We were the most powerful nation in the world at the end of World War II. We didn't start out that way. We didn't have much of an armed force at all to start with. But by the end of that war, we were the dominant power. And thank God we were. In all of history of the whole world, there's only been one empire that was benevolent. That when they conquered a nation, they didn't subjugate them and make slaves out of them and drain them dry. That's America. We were the only power that did it. Think about what we did. We conquered Germany. We conquered Hitler and the Nazis. But what did we do? We had the Marshall Plan. We went in there and rebuilt the whole nation as a democracy. And look at the powerhouse it is. Now, what, 65 years later? It's powerful. What do we do with Japan, who was trying to conquer us? We went over there and we established a democracy. And look how powerful it became. We didn't drain them dry, which is what the other colonial powers always did. We didn't do that. And it's to our credit, but it's the only time in history that that's been done. There's been peace in Europe because we have a standing army still there. In South Korea, we're still there with that truce. If we pull those 40,000 troops out, what's going to happen? Same thing with Japan. Every place we went, people benefited from our nation because we were generous. We were a Christian nation, and it showed. The nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. We had that up until about 1960 or so, when we got that revolution and that horrible decision of Roe versus Wade, where the Supreme Court decided that they were smarter than God and they would abolish the commandment, thou shalt not kill, and allow the killing of unborn children, in violation of the Declaration of Independence, which says that everybody, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Every unborn child is entitled to that as a matter of right. In 1992, when I was a member of the American Bar Association, Hillary Clinton led a small group who turned the American Bar Association from being neutral on the issue of abortion to being in favor of abortion. I didn't know that, and I don't think that the Bar Association knew that this was going to take place, but it took place, the coup took place. The change was in effect on the rules. And then when we found out about it, I and 27,000 other lawyers in the American Bar resigned. And I've been resigned ever since. I get a call every once in a while, do I want to join? The answer is, have you changed your position on abortion? The answer is no, and I'm not going to come back into the American Bar Association until you do.
As a result of this kind of patriotism, we have thought long and hard about what to do. And one of the things we've done is to develop a website And we would like to go through that website with you. And as we do so, you will learn what our ideas are for changing America to become the country that it should be. And so I would like to go to the computer, and I'm going to, this is my access to the internet. Go up to the address bar and type in universalpoliticalparty.com. And this is the website that comes up. Now we're going to read with you this website, and we want you to become educated as to what our ideas are for trying to save America. Our party is financed by a new system that we created and named the Liberty System. You will read it as plank number 13 in the 16 plank platform. Also, you will read the comparison between our Liberty System and the spoils system used for the past 238 years in the United States and presently used by both the Republican and Democratic parties. Under our Liberty System, after paying their mandated dues, our candidates all agree not to use their own money, nor anybody else's money, but to solely rely on our party treasury and active volunteer help of the members to run for public office.
Our candidates, when they're elected, are untouchable from corruption. With the Democratic and Republican Party, they shove them into corruption. They have to get money from people that they're going to legislate later in order to get their money.
For $100 dues, a qualified candidate can run for president, or U.S. senator, or governor, or mayor, or any other elected office in the United States, and need not and cannot raise any more money on their own.
Let me say in that regard, if our candidate becomes president of the United States from our party, you can be sure our candidate will not be taking Air Force One and flying at $180,000 an hour of taxpayers' money to 400 fundraisers like President Obama has done so far this year, and he's got more fundraisers to go. Our candidate, our presidential person, if he's elected, or she's elected, will not solicit any money from anybody, any place, anytime, and not make any promises to anybody. And the same is true of any office, from vice president to governor to anything, any place in the nation.
However, our new system depends on 10 million voters joining our party and agreeing to pay $100 dues and thereby raise $1 billion, which is the amount that the Democratic and Republican parties need to run their campaigns. Now we are going to test and find out whether or not there are 10 million American voters out of over 300 million citizens who will electronically sign the membership pledge set forth hereafter.
Let me say something on this point. 10 million sounds like it's incredible. You can't possibly get 10 million people to do it. But what is 10 million people? Out of 330 million Americans, 10 million is about 3.5% of the population. So what does that mean? We don't need 96.5% of the people to join our party. All we need is 3.5%, and we would be happy. But there's another aspect you ought to keep in mind. I would, and we would, prefer 40 million people to join. And what does that mean? If 40 million people joined, you have what, about 11% of the population. But what does it mean? If you want to raise $1 billion from 40 million members, all you have to do is charge them $25 a piece in dues. If you want $2 billion, charge them $50. If you want $3 billion, charge them $75. If you want $4 billion, charge them $100 a piece. Hey, who can raise money like that in the Republican or the Democratic Party? Either of them. And not be obliged to anybody, no promises made. No deals with unions, with bankers, with anybody, or billionaires. All of the money would come from dues. The candidate is not obliged to anything. So when he gets in office, or she gets in office, all they got to do is, what is in the common best interest of the population? No, not fulfilling a deal that was made to get the money to run. No such thing as staying overnight in Lincoln's bed for a $250,000 donation. That goes out. All that kind of corruption goes out. We don't need it in our party. This is what I didn't have in 1965 as an alternative to the spoil system. We have it now. We created it. We started this 10 years ago and it evolved when we wrote the book, because we not only stated the problem. What good is that? The cheated people and their generations. What is the solution? So we kept evolving and kept evolving. What should have I had available when I wanted to run for mayor in '65? And then it came, because I don't want to solicit. But you know, it dawned on us in this conversation, why don't the Republican Party and the Democratic Party charge dues? Neither one charges dues. Why? And you know why? If they do, it'll destroy them, because it destroys the spoil system. It destroys the spoil system, they're out. So we're the only ones. No other parties come along and said, we'll charge dues. We're the only ones. Now, it depends on whether or not the people want it. If you want it, you've got it. You have your opportunity. And what else have we done? We're going to the internet. Thank God that the internet exists. We're not having meetings all over the nation with small groups and then gather together. What we're doing is here on the internet. If you want to join, you can join. You can make your pledge to me here from your home in your privacy. 10 million people aren't going to get together in a convention. We can do it right here on the internet. Thank God we have the internet. Okay. Now let's proceed and we'll explain how you can make your pledge. And my pledge back.
Jesus Christ said, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Do not let your heart be troubled or be afraid." John 14:27. The purpose and goal of the Universal Political Party is to bring the peace of Jesus Christ by means of our political party into the laws and culture of the United States of America, and to all men and women of goodwill in every nation on earth for all time. Presently, religious voters in America do not have the opportunity to vote for candidates who are free of corruption. This is a personal dislike that I have. When I go to the voting booth, every time I don't get to vote for someone that I really want, I vote for the lesser of two evils, and I want that stopped. All of the money in the Universal Political Party comes from dues assessed on our members. None of the money in the Democratic or Republican parties comes from dues assessed on their members. And this difference is the way the voters of America get control of their government. Politics in America has become so corrupted that any candidate receiving a nomination from their party has already agreed to be corruptible. Neither the Republican nor the Democratic Party lives up to their responsibility to financially provide the means for their candidates to run for office without being corrupted by begging for money, and in return subtly making promises they should not be making, thereby corrupting free elections.
Let me say something here. I understand the congressman now are spending 4 hours a day soliciting funds for their campaign war chest. 4 hours a day. What are they promising to get the money? In our party, no candidate, any place in the United States for any office, promises anything, doesn't solicit anything, doesn't come up with their own money. No deals are made. Nationwide, in our party. Contrast that with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And look, this is what I ran into in 1965. There was no alternative then. We have created an alternative.
Okay. Our liberty and freedom are at stake if we do not do something to change the nature of politics in America. Our solution to this situation is to start a new political party free of the ability to corrupt candidates for office. Therefore, we ask you to consider making the membership pledge set forth hereafter. If 10 million voters pledge their support of $100 dues, then this party will have a national treasury of $1 billion, so that candidates can be free to campaign without soliciting money from any other source. If 40 million voters would pledge their support, then the dues could be reduced to an initial payment of $25 to obtain a treasury of $1 billion, or kept at $100 and have a national treasury of $4 billion. The Liberty system is used by the Universal Political Party. The spoils system is used by both the Democratic and Republican parties. A comparison of the two systems. Under the Liberty system, regarding the wealth of the candidates, the playing field is level. Each candidate pledges not to use their own money in a campaign. Under the spoils system, candidates can and do use their own money and thereby buy the nomination. Regarding candidates soliciting private funds, under our Liberty system, candidates agree not to personally solicit funds. Under the spoils system, candidates can solicit as many as they want and can get. Regarding candidates accepting donations, under the Liberty system, candidates agree not to accept donations. Under the spoils system, candidates can accept donations within the legal limit. Regarding the soliciting of public funds, under the Liberty system, candidates agree not to apply for any taxpayer funds. Under the spoils system, candidates have the option to accept taxpayer funds. Regarding soliciting funds by political party, under the Liberty system, the party does not solicit funds from contributors. Under the spoils system, the party solicits funds from contributors who expect favors in return. Regarding accepting donations by party, under our Liberty system, party agrees not to accept private donations. Under the spoils system, the party sets a budget, but party members are not assessed dues, but agree to support the candidates they choose up to the legal limit. And that is a comparison of the two systems. And now we go back up to the top of our website.
All of the money in the Universal Political Party comes from assessment of dues of the members. None of the money that comes into the treasury of the Democratic and Republican parties, none of the money comes from dues assessed from members. Look at the contrast. And at election time, when you're a voter and you don't have a financial interest in one side or the other, you made deals with lobbyists and all that, who are you going to go for when it comes to voting? The candidate who's free? Our party? who's got no connections, no deals made, no corruption, and is going to be untouchable when in office? Or the other side, who's made all kinds of deals to get all kinds of money, and you don't know where it is, and they're trying to become multimillionaires while in office. Our party members are not. This is going to be a part-time job for our party members, who are going to rely on their own income that they had before they got elected in office. That was the way the nation was set up, and we've gotten away from it. We're going back. It was a lot better when we had it the old-fashioned way. It was a part-time job being a congressman or being a legislator, and that's all it should be, and we're going back to it.
Okay. As to soliciting funds by political party, the Liberty system, the party does not solicit funds from contributors. Under the spoil system, the party solicits funds from the contributors who expect favors in return. As to accepting donations by party, under the Liberty system, the party agrees not to accept private donations. Under the spoil system, the party agrees to and will accept donations within legal limits. As to assessment of dues by membership, under the Liberty system, the party sets a budget and assesses each member a proportionate share which is paid as dues. Under the spoil system, the party sets a budget, but party members are not assessed dues, but agree to support the candidates they choose up to the legal limit. And that's a comparison between the two systems. And now we will go back to the top of the home page and go to the link for party platform right here. And this is the party platform of the Universal Political Party. May I say in the beginning, you will recognize the 10 Commandments. And it is an odd idea at the present time to think that any political party would include these in their party platform. But let me remind you that up until about 50 years ago, this was the laws and the culture of the United States of America. Number one, a recognition that God exists and that in God we trust.
In that regard, at the last Democratic convention, National Convention, they had a speaker who put it to a vote as to whether or not the Democratic platform should include the word God. They put it to a voice vote. The first voice vote came out no. The speaker put it to a second time to a voice vote. The answer was no. Then you saw some woman go over and talk to the speaker. He put it to a third vote to the convention. I listened, and I think everybody else listened, knew that they said for a third time, no, they didn't want the word God included in the Democratic platform. But the speaker said the vote was yes. But he didn't ask for a roll call vote by members to verify that what he was saying was true. The conclusion I drew from watching that woman come to him, that he was instructed that word God better be in that platform or else. And he made sure that it was in there. Which means what? The Democratic Party doesn't believe in God, the 10 Commandments, or anything that flows from it. And the Republican Party, for 40 years they keep saying, we are a big tent, we include everybody, whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God. And for 40 years they keep saying they're going to do something about Roe versus Wade and reverse it, a constitutional amendment or all other devious means. They never do anything. They've had the power and they've never done anything with it. And they're not going to do anything with it. Our party will. You can bet your life our party will.
Number 2, a recognition that we are to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. Number 3, a recognition that we are to love our neighbor as we do ourselves. Number 4, a recognition that we are not to take the name of God in vain. Number 5, a recognition that we are to keep the Sabbath day holy. Number 6, a recognition that we are to honor our fathers and our mothers. Number 7, a recognition that we are not allowed to kill other persons. Number 8, a recognition that we are not allowed to commit adultery. Number 9, a recognition that we are not allowed to steal what is not ours. Number 10, a recognition that we are not allowed to bear false witness against our neighbor. Number 11, a recognition that we are not allowed to covet our neighbor's wife or husband. Number 12, a recognition that we are not allowed to covet what belongs to another person.
Of these 12 planks that Barbara just read, 10 come from God Himself that He gave to Moses thousands of years ago, and have been used all these thousands of years by billions of people on how they should live their lives. And our country did the same thing when it was founded 238 years ago. 2 of the commandments were written by Christ 2,000 years ago. They're called the Golden Rule. In here I believe they're number 2 and number 3. So that means 12 of the 16 planks in our platform were written by God. If you want to disagree with them, go disagree with God. We didn't write them.
Number 13, a recognition that we as a political party are responsible for finding qualified candidates for public office who have lived by the 10 Commandments and who will adhere to our party's platform. That we, as a political party, are responsible for raising all monies spent on a campaign for any public office. That no candidate may personally solicit nor accept political donations, nor from any state or federal taxpayer funds, nor use his or her own funds, and that the party shall set up a budget as dues and assess each member a proportionate share of the budget, and the party will not solicit nor accept political donations, nor solicit nor accept taxpayer funds.
In this regard, this took us 49 years to put together. That goes back to 1965 when we walked away from the spoils system. We needed a plank, which is this one, so that people like us could run for public office on our terms, where we can keep our independence, keep our integrity, and be able to hold public office and do what is in the common interest, and not having forsaken by making deals and getting money before holding the public office, to where you can't do what is in the common interest as you should be doing when you're holding public office.
Number 14, a recognition that party members will rely on the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution in structuring governments.
Now, in that regard, we have officials who pledge when they're voted into office that under oath they will uphold the terms of the Constitution, and they don't. And you have to wait until the next election to get them out of office, because we don't believe in a violent revolution to get candidates out of office. We had the impeachment process, which is extremely difficult to use.
Number 15, a recognition that capitalism with morality will be the economic system advanced by this party.
Let me have a sheet of generations book. On the back of this book is, we quote Pope John Paul II. He said once, "Capitalism without morality is doomed to failure." We took his wording and we tweaked it to where we say, what?
Capitalism with morality will be the economic system advanced by this party.
And that's where it comes from. It comes from Pope John Paul. And he's right. You not only have capitalism, it can't be run away, and it can't be selfish, and it can't be greedy and avaricious and tyrannical. It has to be with morals. When you have that, you have the proper balance. What we have now is not capitalism. It's socialism. This country was never founded on socialism. It was founded on capitalism. That's how we prospered. That's why everybody came here. That's why my folks immigrated from Italy to come here. Because we have free enterprise. You could rise to the top. We don't have a caste system where you're locked in from birth and you can't go up. We have capitalism. And capitalism is what our party stands for and what we want to return this country to. We have socialism, and we're going down the drain.
Number 16, a recognition that we as a political party will rely on the compendium of the social doctrine of the church for guidance. This is the book, Compendium of the Social Doctrine of the Church. It is compiled by some of the greatest minds in the world over many years to determine the best way for governments to operate with morality. It's a very intense book, a difficult book to read. I've read the whole thing. If I could sum it up in one sentence, it would be the sentence that Jesus Christ gave us when he said, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." Because the economic systems of the world need to take into consideration the people.
In that regard, it was Pope John Paul II to whom this compendium was given after it had been compiled and put into that book form, and he accepted it with his approval. We're using this as a guide. It's not mandatory on our members. It's a guide, but what a powerful guide. This compendium is the only one. There's no other church that's done a compendium of its social doctrine. Only this one. This one is written for all nations, for all time. We are one of 193 nations, and our party has decided that we are going to use this as a guide for how our nation should have laws and what should be our culture. And I think it's a pretty good idea to have it, especially all the work that they've done. Pledge of John Angelo Del Buono. I, John Angelo Del Buono, promise that if a sufficient number of voters, hopefully 10 million, keep their pledge to me that they will pay initial dues of $100 and adhere to the 16-plank platform previously set forth above of the Universal Political Party, and volunteer their time and services to create the party and nominate and elect our candidates, then I, with their help, will file the necessary legal documents to incorporate the Universal Political Party nationwide. Then I will, with all their help, call a national convention to ratify and adopt the 16-plank platform, elect local, state, and national officers, comply with all state and federal election laws, and such are the party planks and bylaws as the majority vote to approve. I will turn over the membership list to the legally incorporated universal political party. This is my pledge, and I hope at least 10 million of you will give me your pledge. I prefer about 40 million, for the reasons you already gave it. We can reduce the dues if you want, but that's my pledge. Now, there's a contract being made here. This is my pledge to you. You're going to make your pledge to me. That's our contract. And when I get to the 10 million, if you notice in here, and you better be careful, because if you make the pledge that you're going to participate in forming the party, selecting the candidates, and elect them, you're going to work. You're not going to be passive, as the Democratic and Republican parties want you to be. They don't want you active. They want you passive, but they want to act in your name. With this party, you're going to pay dues. You're going to work. You're going to participate. And if you join this, I'm depending on 10 million of you helping me. I'm not going to do this alone. 10 million of you are going to do it. 10 million, we can get this done in nothing flat. Now, how fast this happens, it depends on how fast people join. But as you pledge, it's going to be recorded in the marvels of the internet until it's all there. We'll get to your membership pledge in a minute as to what you're pledging. But I'm relying on all of you to help. And if all of you help, we'll have no trouble with the work.
And now we go to the top of the home page again and go to the link for your pledge. First, you give your name and state that you are a registered voter in the state of, and you're going to give an address where you can be reached, and you're going to give several ways you can be reached by phone, fax, and email. And this is the pledge that you will be making.
I want to read it.
John is going to read it to you.
If a sufficient number of registered voters, hopefully 10 million, will pledge to me, John Angelo Del Buono, with that, they will pay initial dues of $100, and that they will adhere to the 16-plank platform of the Universal Political Party, as previously set forth. Then in that event, I, meaning one of the 10 million, will volunteer my time to help create the party. And I will adhere to the 16-plank party platform set forth previously. And I will pay initial dues of $100 to the national treasurer of the Universal Political Party after it is incorporated according to state and national election laws. And I am sent an invoice for those dues. I will actively help nominate and elect qualified candidates for public office. I hereby authorize John Angelo Del Buono to do whatever is necessary to get this party registered in all 50 states when, in his sole opinion, there is a sufficient number of registered voters to do so. I hereby authorize John Angelo Del Buono to appoint a nationwide temporary slate of party officers to serve until they are ratified or not ratified by the full membership at its first convention. I authorize him to create a set of bylaws for this party that can be submitted for approval by the membership along with the 16-plank platform at its first convention. I further authorize him to do this as speedily as possible, even to include the 2016 election campaign, if that is possible. That is the pledge from the 10 million people to me. And it gives me a lot of authority to get this party moving in a hurry. And have a full slate of officers. And have the party platform. And have a treasury of $1 billion pledged by the 10 million. So when we can start, we start with 10 million members, $1 billion treasury that you'll get a bill for and it'll come on in, a party platform, and conventions to be called and registered in each state, and with a temporary slate of officers for the party in every state, including the national office. That's a wonderful way to start. But, it requires you to do the pledging. If you want it. If you want this party, you got it. If you don't want it, and not enough of people want it, we've done all we can. We can't do any more. Angels can do no more.
Information that we need from you. You would or would not be willing to serve as a party officer? And if so, in what position? You would or would not be willing to serve as a temporary chairman until the permanent chair is elected? If you have had experience with politics, please state what it is and the number of years that you participated and in what political position. And you would either be willing or not be willing to help draft bylaws for this party. And you would or would not be willing to help plan a convention. And you would put down which convention type, local, state, or national, that you would be willing to help with. If you are interested in seeking the party nomination for public office, state what nomination that is. In the first election campaign in which this party is legally incorporated, including the 2016 campaign, if that is possible. State whether or not you will be willing to help get this party legally registered in your state. And if you know it, the last date to register in your state. And how many, the minimum number of people it takes to register in your state. And whether or not you are willing to be one of the members. And now here is where you sign your name electronically. I'm going to try to do it. Now, once you have signed it, hit this button to submit your pledge, and it will be recorded.
And I'll get a notification, read by email, that you have joined. And I'm going to wait until 10 million of you, because that's what I think we need in order to start this party. If we get 10 million, and you've told me who wants to hold what office, what your experience is, what political office you'd like to run for, it'll help me enormously in making the selection for the temporary slate of officers, national and in all 50 states. We can get off to a running fast start with all of this information. But I need the information, I need your pledge.
And once again, we will go to the top of the home page and go to our publishing company, the Ellingsworth Press.
On the Ellingsworth Press, we're discussing the financing and creation of the universal political party through the free enterprise system. The 10 million people who are pledging don't have to pay the $100 until after the universal political party is incorporated in all 50 states and complying with all of the laws. When it's functioning, then a bill will be sent out to all the 10 million members for the $100. So you don't pay anything until it's a live, active political party in reality. Secondly, you don't pay any money and you don't have to participate in the formation, in the creation of this political party. This is a godsend thanks to this device, the computer. Because 10 million of us can get together and form a political party just by making your pledge and me making my pledge through this device. But it doesn't cost you any money, and it doesn't take any of your time. You're not going to go to any convention until after the party becomes viable. So how are we going to finance this thing? We're using the free enterprise system. We wrote this book, The Cheated Generations. You're not obliged to buy it. You're not obliged to buy any of the books that we wrote and that we're going to discuss. We wish you would, we hope you will, but you're not obliged to in order to belong to the party. Now, there's some things that are on the back of this book that I want to read to you. The 10 Commandments once were, are not now, but should again be the basis for all our civil and criminal laws in the United States. We have the 10 Commandments as 10 of our platform, our planks. The other part is, you're not going to get that. They don't have it explicitly like that way. We have in our plank, in God we trust. First of all, in God we exist. God exists with us. It's not a theory. It's not something floating in the air. We believe that God exists, and that all those presidents who swear under oath before God that they're going to uphold the Constitution, we believe that they believe it too, all the way from George Washington to the present time, but I don't know about this present guy. But this is something that I came up with. The 10 Commandments once were, are not now, but should again be the basis of all our civil and criminal laws in the United States. This is a fundamental principle of our political party. Now, what about the 10 Commandments? Antonin Scalia, the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, once said on this subject, the 10 Commandments have profoundly influenced the formation of Western legal thought and the formation of our country. The 10 Commandments provide the moral background of the Declaration of Independence and the foundation of our legal tradition. Well, nobody can say anything better than what Justice Scalia just said. What about President John Adams? What did he say about it? Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. This is a profound observation because it takes a minimum of effort to control people who are moral and religious, because they're doing it in and of them by themselves. They're following the 10 Commandments. They want to respect God. They don't want to go to hell for violating the commandments. So it's easy to control. They're not going to steal, they're not going to lie, they're not going to commit adultery, they're not going to covet somebody's goods, somebody's wife, somebody's husband. They're not going to swear, they're not going to get into fights. All of those things that cause a lot of trouble in a society. That's why President Adams said, our Constitution our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Right now, For the last half century, we have given up on the Ten Commandments as the basis of our civil and criminal laws. There was Justice Moore lost his position as Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court because he posted 10 Commandments in the courthouse. That's how low it's gotten to be. And isn't that a shame? We're going to bring it back. Our political party will bring it back. The Democratic Party could care less. And the Republican Party, forget it. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. But they're not going to do it. I want to read this to you. We are 86-year-old great-grandparents. We self-published our book, The Cheated Generations, which we copyrighted in 2005, and which includes the Universal Political Party in the name of Attorney John Del Buono and Barbara Del Buono. We resolve we will try to stop the cheating, so that is why we created the Universal Political Party. In this book, you can read about why this party is needed. The source of money we will have to continue our work on the Universal Political Party will come from the sale of our books. The Cheated Generations, 3rd edition, 50 Years at the Bar, When Two Become One, The Miracle of Marriage, Come Holy Spirit, Acknowledge the Man, and A Man to Remember. We are not seeking, nor will we accept, financial donations to create the Universal Political Party. Let me repeat that. We are not seeking, nor will we accept, financial donations to create the Universal Political Party. When in the history of the nation has that ever happened? No person has to buy any of our books to belong to the Universal Political Party. I want to stress it. You don't have to buy any of our books to join the political party. When there's a change, we will post it on this website. If there's any changes, we'll let you know. If this political party becomes a successful reality in the United States of America, then it will probably spread to other nations all over the world. In that regard, there's approximately 193 nations. There's approximately 123 that are democracies of one form or another. Our political party could fit into the 123 democracies right now. One platform you'd have to change that has to do with the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. But that's the only platform you have to modify of the 16 that we have. We only have 16 platforms because the convention can do whatever they want on additional planks and platforms and bylaws and constitutional amendments, anything else they want. Once you're incorporated, then the majority controls, and we'll go through the democratic process. We got the essentials, what we think everybody can agree on, that are essential if you're going to be in this political party rather than the other two. There's one nation in particular I think this party could flourish in right at the moment. That's Argentina. Argentina has a similar situation to what we have in the United States. In Argentina, the government is insistent on people be poor and dependent on them. Same thing here in the United States. They're pushing everybody down and trying to make them poor, make them dependent, welfare and all of those things, instead of free enterprise and going up. But other nations can go right ahead with the Universal Political Party if they want. Now, the next thing is to go to Unlingford Press for a description of each book, the cost and how to order. We may be contacted at ellingsworthpress@aol.com. Go ahead, Barbara.
This book, Acknowledged a Man, is a very profound story of our son, John Nicholas Del Buono, after he was injured severely when a madman at the Waterbury YMCA hit him in the head with a baseball bat several times. Most people don't expect the worst to come into their lives. Sometimes it does, and it did to Nick. And I think that Emily Dickinson said it best about Nick's life when she wrote her famous poem entitled "A Man." Fate slew him, but he did not drop. She fell, but he did not fall. Impaled him on her fiercest stakes, he neutralized them all. She stung him, sapped his firm advance, but when her worst was done, and he, unmoved, regarded her, acknowledged him a man. And that is where the title of this book comes from, Acknowledged a Man. Dr. Yehuda Ben Yishai, professor of clinical rehabilitation medicine and the director of the Brain Injury Day Treatment Program at the New York University School of Medicine, Rusk Institute of Rehabilitation Medicine, said about this book. This book should be on the must-read list of all healthcare professionals. With admirable restraint, eschewing both rancor and shrillness, the mother of a severely brain-injured man drives home some painful, disturbing, but ultimately edifying messages to those who provide care and counsel to patients and families. This is a very respected gentleman in the brain injury world. Another famous doctor, Dr. Bernie Siegel, author of Love, Medicine, and Miracles, and Prescriptions for Living, said about this book, "It takes an exceptional individual and family to realize that what is evil is not an affliction, but a response lacking compassion towards the individual and family experiencing the affliction. Out of their affliction has come this book. It is an excellent resource which can help us all to deal with the difficulties of life and use them to create a better world where the wounded are cared for with heart, not just hands. Works of art can come from the difficulties an aspired family is challenged by." I'm very proud of this book, but most I'm proud of the young man who made it possible.
I once asked Nick, I said, "Look, Nick, you're blind, you're mute, you're crippled. If you could only have one of the three back, which one would you choose?" What did you think he said? He said he wanted to walk. For 27 years he couldn't walk, and that was the one of the three that he chose. He was a marvelous man. He 3 weeks before he died, he couldn't swallow anymore, and he had a choice of either putting the tube back in the stomach and continue to be tube fed, which he had done in the beginning, or die. He chose to die. And for the next 3 weeks we had the Vista people come in. The priest came in and gave him the last rites. And about a half hour before he died, he said, through his way of speaking to us, that he was ready. And he died. He died about a half hour later. He was died in a state of grace. which he had lived in for all of those years, receiving Holy Communion. Right now he's in heaven, and hopefully all of us will join him when we die and go before God and go on into heaven. On the front cover, there's a picture of a dragon with 3 heads. Where that came from is one time I was talking to Barbara about my frustration. And I said to her, I feel like I'm fighting a dragon with 3 heads. The YMCA, the medical profession, and the judicial profession.
The medical profession, because there was no place for young brain injury people to be cared for. Nick was at the forefront. TBI, traumatic brain injury, was not even a medical diagnosis at that time. Now you have the soldiers coming home from the wars with TBI. Nick was one of the young people who brought all of this about. It was one of the other beautiful things that he did with his life.
We joined with 5 other families who had traumatic brain injury members and formed the Connecticut Brain Injury Association one night a long time ago in order to do all we could for Nick and for their loved ones as well. We put a lot of time and effort into it, and it succeeded, and it succeeds to the present time, and also on a national level. Barbara has started a movie manuscript for a script for a movie for this book, and frankly it ought to be made into a movie. It'd be excellent if it was. There's a sequel to this book, Acknowledge a Man. It's called A Man to Remember. And what this is, it's what it says it is, the inspiring story of St. Nick, sequel to Acknowledge a Man by Barbara Del Buono. In here are all the people who wrote testimonials as to how Nick affected their lives. And it goes with this book, and it's worth reading.
A couple of examples. Many patients come through my life. Few make a lasting impression. Nick was one of those who not only touched my heart, but inspired me to take my sense of compassion to a higher level. Jacqueline Dodona, registered nurse, Waterbury Hospital. St. Nick, we are all so fortunate for having known him, and I will be forever in your debt for inviting Gail and I into that blessed circle. I cannot think of anyone who so profoundly affected my life in so short a period of time. Dr. Alan Chatt, neuropsychologist, the Phoenix Fund for the Neurologically Challenged. And the book is filled with such tributes. And it's another tribute to Nick, that people felt that good about him. Come Holy Spirit is a book designed to help parents teach their children about the sacrament of confirmation in the Catholic Church. And every young person who becomes a Catholic has to make a decision for themselves. It's a decision they must make alone, not with anyone else, about whether or not they are willing to submit to the teachings of Jesus Christ as promulgated by the Catholic Church. If they say yes to this faith, they are taking on a lifestyle that is vastly different from most other people's lifestyle. It's a very important moment in their lives. and I think it's summed up in this poem. Come, Holy Spirit, I believe in you. Send forth your love, my faith I confirm. Send down your dove. Come, Holy Spirit, into my soul. Set me on fire, make heaven my goal. Let me be a witness that Christ is my King. Let me pay homage as his praises I sing. I'll serve you in life till I breathe my last breath. I know you will welcome me at the time of my death. Till then I am yours, to use as you will. Please send your Spirit my whole life to fill.
What this book means to me is this. I believe that Christ was the Messiah when he was asked, was he God? By Pontius Pilate, 2,000 years ago. He said that he was. And for that he was tortured, humiliated, and put to death on that cross. And then he proved that he was God when he died and he came back to life 3 days later. He did certain things 2,000 years ago that have a profound influence on our lives and billions of other people as well. For instance, he told Peter, one of the 12, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." The 267th successor to Peter is alive now, presiding at the Vatican, and it's Pope Francis. That's a direct line all the way back to that moment when Christ chose Peter to be the first pope. But there's more. To help us out in living our lives on earth so that we can die and then go on into heaven for all eternity, Jesus Christ did certain other things. He gave the power to forgive sin to priests. He gave it to the apostles handed it down. They've been forgiven sins for 2,000 years. Today, it's not only the Pope, but there's 255,000 priests all over the world that forgive sins. So people can get back on the right track, make amends, promise not to do it again, and go on with their lives so that they get into heaven when they die, because we're all going to die. No question about that. But he did other things. He changed bread and wine, and he told the group that that was now his body and his blood. Not figuratively, but actually. Part of the people who were there when he did it, they said, "This is a hard saying." They would not accept it. They left. But the others stayed. The ones who stayed believed that Christ changed that bread and wine into his body and blood, actually. And as God, he has the power to do it. For our benefit, so that we can receive God into our bodies through Holy Communion at Mass. Not figuratively, but he himself comes into our body. Do you know what that means? Do you know the import of it? God Almighty, the creator of the whole world, is now inside of your body. Now you have to be in a state of grace to do it. But for heaven's sakes, isn't it worthwhile? You give up sin, you give up vice, so you can have the creator of the whole world in your body? every day, that Pope and those 255,000 priests changed bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ and distribute it to those who are receiving Holy Communion. And what a marvelous way to live. It's just absolutely marvelous. But he did more. He taught by parables. And these apostles followed him around for 3 years. Then they wrote epistles to different places. Those are all gathered together. And they're in the gospel. Gospel according to St. John, the Gospel of St. Matthew, whatever they are. But they're gathered together. And every Sunday, a little passage is read from one or the other. Then the priest gives a sermon on discussing that point. All of this is to help you. How should you live your life? So you live in peace and harmony while you're alive here on earth. But also, most importantly, when you die on the day of death, you go on into heaven for all eternity. You don't go down to hell and get punished. It's a marvelous way to live. Just absolutely marvelous. This book is called When Two Become One, The Miracle in Marriage. Barbara and I have that miracle in marriage. We became one 64 years ago, and we've been one ever since. It's the marvelous way to live. It's the finest way you can possibly live. And we've had it, and we want to share it with anybody who wants it. It's essential questions you should ask yourselves before marriage or before divorce. We use the Socratic system of asking questions. Remember, that's what Socrates did in Greece about 2,500 years ago. That's how he taught. Well, we figured if it was good enough for Socrates, it's good enough for us. So we're using it. And the picture here on the front, you won't recognize that fellow there, but that's me with black wavy hair. When I'd finished 2 years of law school and on a break between semesters, going into my last year of law school, I married that beautiful young woman there, also with black hair as wavy. On the back cover, that's the same couple 50 years later at our anniversary, at our 50th wedding anniversary. And now you see how we are now at 64, with one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. I want to read you something. We wrote this after much thought. Can two become one? If a moral and mature person will marry a moral and mature person, they can become one. If a moral and mature person chooses to marry an immoral and immature person, they won't become one. If an immoral and immature person marries an immoral and immature person, they can't become one. A moral person is one who bases a lifestyle on the laws of the 10 Commandments. A mature person is one who can support him or herself, maintains a high quality of love in all aspects of life, and gets along with other mature persons. All persons have a God-given free will to become moral and mature. So, if you're happily married, and an awful lot of people are, you're both moral and mature. But if you're unhappily married, you're in one of those other two categories. Either one of you or both of you is immoral and immature. Where this came in is I'd have people come into my office when I had a general practice when I first started. Sometimes the party who was being sued would come in and would be baffled and perplexed as to what to do and wanted some assistance, some guidance. Well, I'm sitting there and I have the oneness of marriage. That's the perfect solution. But this couple is unhappily married. Why don't you become one like I am? But how do I convey it? How do I get it across? So I went to Barbara and I said, I need a book that I can hand to my client. So we worked on it, and that's what we came up with. All of these questions for the client to read and think about, and then hand it to the spouse. Now, when they hand it to the spouse, one of two things happens. They refuse, which means their mind is shut, you're not going to get through. Or the mind is open. If their mind is open, it's because they're saying, I want to save this marriage. If I'm doing something wrong, I'll straighten it out, I'll give it up. But prove to me I'm doing something wrong. So that's what we did. All the grounds for divorce are in here, as well as a lot of other valuable information. A lot of people don't know a lot about the person they married. For example, I had a woman come in. Her husband worked at a gas station, and he could not read the numbers on the tires to see what size the tires were. Yet he had finished Cheshire High School and had a certificate that he had finished Cheshire High School. I called Cheshire High School. They said, yeah, we give him a certificate even if he can't read numbers on the side of a tire. Well, how could somebody go through 12 years of schooling and be given what appears to be a certificate? They're smart enough to make a living, support a wife and children, but that didn't happen. You have to know who you're marrying. Another woman came in. She married a man who went through hell during World War II. He was shell-shocked. Everything was at a rage. Everything was at a shout. And she's trying to live with this guy. And it's not working out. All of those things you should know before you get married. This helps you do that. Or before you decide to get divorced, you should read this book as well. And I hope everybody does, and I hope they have the oneness that we do. Now, at our 50th wedding anniversary at the Immaculate Conception, Barbara wrote a song. It's entitled Love Me and I Will Love You, and it was sung then and a few other times in church. And I highly recommend it, especially to the musicians that are in the audience.
50 years at the bar. Boy, did I have a lot of fun writing this one. It's 50 years in the life of a young Italian lawyer whose parents immigrated from Italy. He became a lawyer and practiced in his hometown for 50 years, now many more. It's full of stories about the cases that he's handled. Some of them are funny, some of them are sad, some of them are rather profound. In particular, one case in which he discovered that the Torrington Police Department had been taping telephone calls between lawyers and clients for over 20 years. And it turned out to be a statewide scandal. And it's full of stories like that. And I'll let John tell you his thoughts on this book.
Well, first of all, I proudly wear this pin. This was given to me by the Connecticut Bar Association after I'd been practicing law for 50 years. And I'm very proud of it. It's a great honor to be a lawyer. When I was on the island of Aishima, I was a radio repairman. I had plenty of time at night to think about what to do with the rest of my life. There was 3 choices in me. I wanted to be a professional. There was to become a priest. There's only 3 great professions in my looking at it, the way I saw it at the time. Being a priest, being a doctor, being a lawyer. I thought about being a priest, but immediately I knew I had the wrong kind of hormones to become a priest. So that was out. I thought about becoming a doctor. That meant that for the rest of my life I'd hear people complaining about their ailments and how sick they were. Or going to operating rooms and seeing blood all over the place and all over my gloves. And I thought, no. But the other one, where you talk for a living, you persuade people, you sit down in their nice quarters with a business suit, that had a great appeal to me. So I became a lawyer and I talk for a living. And it's a great honor. It's just a great honor and a great privilege. And this covers that, it covers 50 years, but it's now 64 years since I became a lawyer. There's an interesting story about that. I'd finished 2 years of law school, and I called home and I said, "Pa, I want to get married." He said, "How are you going to get married? You got another year of law school." He says, "You get married, your wife will be going to be pregnant in 3 months. How are you going to finish?" I said, "I don't know, I'll take a chance." Well, we married January 27, 1950. Sure enough, 3 months later, she was pregnant, just like Pa had predicted. So what I did was I appealed to the Supreme Court of Oklahoma for permission to take the bar exam early before I finished law school, so that I could go to work when I finished law school, because the baby was due in December, and I was going to finish law school in January. They gave me permission. I took the exam. It was 8 hours a day for 4 days, and amazingly I passed. And good thing I did, because it helped us all our lives. So I was in law school as a lawyer, still finishing my last semester of law school.
He made it.
Here I am 64 years later.
In the foreword to this book, I wrote this paragraph. "I happen to believe that lawyers are very special people with intricate minds that always surprise me in the twists and turns they take in trying to solve legal problems. They intrigue me, fascinate me, surprise me, and make me in awe of their talent. I am aware of the many jokes about lawyers and their supposed legal tricks, but that does not deter me in my admiration of them as marvelous professionals who hold the bands of society together as they fight for the rights of the people they serve. I do not believe it to be a coincidence that the most advanced countries in the world are those having lawyers fighting for the rights of individual citizens."
It's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. It's a great honor. On the back, it says, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury." This is what I had a case. Let me tell you about it. I had a case of my client is a passenger in a truck, and his fellow employee is driving the truck at night down the grade and towards a bridge, and at the base of the bridge there's a drop, and water collected right at that spot, right before the bridge. And as he's driving down, a car came from the other side, went through that puddle and passed him. And this truck driver went down, but he was going so fast that when he hit the puddle of water went up, splashed all over the windshield, and he lost control and he hit the guardrail and injured my client, who was a passenger. Those are the facts. Under the law, I have to prove that he failed to drive as a reasonable, prudent person would under the same or similar circumstances. Well, how do you prove that? So this is what I did. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge will instruct you that the defendant in this case was obliged to act as a reasonable, prudent driver would under the same or similar circumstances when he drove his truck over that bridge. You are very fortunate in that the reasonable, prudent man was out driving that night at that very time and place where the accident happened. He crossed that bridge right before the defendant and went through that puddle of water without splashing up on his windshield and then hitting the bridge. I rest my case. I won the case. Right after I won it, the judge came off the bench and congratulated me on that summation to the jury on how to prove that a reasonable, prudent man was out driving that very time at that very location. Wasn't I fortunate? So that's why we put it on the back of the book on yellow pad. I rest my case, Your Honor.
These are the books that I have written and that I have collaborated with my husband on writing. As I told you, they are books about the loves of my life. I can't write about anything else. I've enjoyed being an author, and I've traveled all over this country in consequence of having done this. I've loved every minute of it, and I hope you will take time to read about these books and see if there are any that you would enjoy reading. If so, you can order them on the internet through Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And of course, we will greatly appreciate anything you do in that regard. Thank you for listening, and I wish you happy reading.
What you've seen on this video are the love stories that we have in all aspects of our lives. This one is a love story that we have with our nation, with the whole world, and with the political party that we have created. This is the love story, obviously, between Barbara and me. This is a love story about our son, Nick. God bless him. Someday we'll join him in heaven. This is the fun that we've had together through our marriage and through my career as a lawyer for the last 64 years. And what a great honor it is to be a lawyer. This is our love of God and of Jesus Christ, who we meet every Sunday when we receive Holy Communion. And when we die, we'll see him in person at that time. Thank you for listening to us. I hope you join the political party and buy some of our books that are appropriate for your life and your occasion. Thank you.